welcome back to Peaky Boardgamer. My name is Hector, and in today's video I will explain the game Dog Lover. Dog Lover is designed by David Short and published by AEG Games. This is pretty similar to another game which of course is about cats, The Cat Lady. This one's about dogs. It takes about 30 minutes to finish, it's for 2 to 4 players, and let's see how the game is played. During the game, players are trying to make a collection with the most satisfied and happy dogs. Players alternate turns picking up cards from a card grid using their trick cards. These cards can be food to feed your dogs, favorite things for your lovely hounds, traits, training books, adoption contracts, but also more dogs to be added to your collection. Most of these cards are attached to your dogs, boosting your victory point score. However, at the end of the game, all dogs that are not fed grant their owners a negative victory point score despite the number of accessories that are attached to them. After tallying up the score, one of the players will be announced to be a true dog lover. At first, let's get familiar with the cards of the game. Split by their backside, we have game cards, dog tricks, and rescue shelter cards. Then we have double-sided standard trick and special trick cards, one special fetch card, and one the game is ending card. Game cards are split to many types. The type's name is written in the top of the card. We have dog cards, food cards, trait cards, dog training cards, favorite things, special cards, and rescue shelter cards. I will explain all of these types later on. Now, the first thing you need to do is to scan all the cards of the game and exclude the ones that are not applicable according to your player count. To do this, you need to use this symbol depicted in the top right corner of the card. In my example, I will be setting up for a 2-players game, so I have included only the 2+ cards. All this bunch of cards depicting 3+ and 4+ are excluded and are returned back to the box. After you do so, you need to give each player one trick card from this stack and also a random starting dog from this stack. Players place their trick and starting dog cards facing upwards in front of their play area. Players that are new to this game should use the standard side of their trick card, while more experienced players can use the special side. Players then choose a random player to be the starting player. This player also keeps the scoring pad. The player who sits to the right of the starting player takes and keeps the fetch card. Any remaining trick cards are returned back in the box. Remaining dog cards, however, return to the rest of the game cards, which are then all shuffled together to form a new stack of game cards. Now you need to insert the game end card into the game card stack, counting a specific number of cards from the bottom of the stack according to your player count. In my 2-players example, this number is 7, so I count 7 cards from the bottom of the stack, then I place the game end card on top of these 7 cards, and finally I will place the rest of the card stack on top. Then create a 3x3 grid made of game cards under the game card stack. Draw the top 3 dog tricks and place them in a column facing upwards. Do the same with the rescue shelter cards. Then create a supply of food cubes in the middle of the table. The player who has the fetch card takes the dog figure and selects any one row or any one column and then places the figure next to that row or that column. The game is now ready to start. Players alternate turns starting with the first player and continuing in a clockwise order. This continues indefinitely until the end of the game is triggered. So I will proceed by explaining the phases of a player's turn. At the start of their turn, players have a window to play any number of cards from their hand. How these cards are played will be explained later on. In the next step, the player gains new cards from the grid by applying the pattern depicted on one of their tricks. I say one of them because, as we will see, a player can acquire more tricks. I only have this trick, so I could take any one of the columns, but I can also rotate the card as I like, and in this situation I could take all the cards of any one row. So, if I selected the middle row, I must take all the cards. I cannot leave any of the cards on the row. The limitation is that you may never take more than one card from the row or column the guard dog protects. The way I just used my trick is valid, however, I could not use it to take all cards from the third column. After the player gains cards from the grid, a new window opens, during which players again can play any number of their cards. After the player is done playing cards for a second time, the player must move the guard dog and refill the grid with new cards from the stack. The guard dog's new position is determined by the way the trick pattern was applied to the grid and also by the position of this star on the trick card. So since I used the card to take all cards from this row, the star indicates that the guard dog's new position is this one. Then you refill the cards of the grid with new cards from the stack. We can see that the guard dog is now protecting the middle row. Refilling the grid finalizes the player's turn. When you play cards, you can play any number of cards. There is also no limit in how many cards you can have in your hand. Some cards need to be played the same turn you take them from the grid. Some others can be kept to be played in a later turn. In general, most of the cards have a text which indicates when the card can be used and also the effect of the card. I will explain all of the cards starting with special cards and fetch in specific. A player having fetch card in their play area may use it in playing phase 1 or playing phase 3 to exchange it with any card from the grid. Using the fetch card, you can also take a second card from the guard dog's column or row. Fetch card remains on the grid until another player or even the same player takes it. When this happens, the card is played again into the player's play area and can be used even on the same turn. When you take a walk card, you need to tuck it under any one of your dogs. Each dog can have up to one walk card and will grant the player 2 victory points at the end of the game if that dog is fed. If the walk card cannot be tucked on the same turn, it is discarded. When you take a bone card, you keep it into your hand. If you have only one at the end of the game, you lose 1 victory points. If you have 2 of them, as it's said here, you gain 1 victory point per dog you have. Important, the dogs must be fed at the end of the game. If you have 3 bones, you gain 2 victory points per dog. When you take a dog card, you place it in your play area. At the end of the game, if this dog is fed, it will grant you the depicted victory points, as well as the points depicted in tucked and attached cards. When you take food cards, you immediately take the corresponding cubes from the general supply, and then you discard the cards. With a wild food card, you take a black cube, which counts as any other food type. Players don't need to feed their dogs immediately. They accumulate food during the game, and they will feed their dogs just before scoring. When you take favorite thing cards, again you keep them into your hand. At the end of the game, players gain victory points depending on the number of different favorite things they have. Players can also create multiple sets of different favorite things that will score separately. Training cards have 2 uses. One of them is to tuck them under any one of your dogs. The card will grant you 1 victory point at the end of the game, but each dog can have only 1 training card tucked. Alternatively, you can keep training cards in your hand to buy a new dog trick from the market. There is a cost in the bottom of the card, and this is in training cards. So I could spend 2 cards to gain this trick, or 3 to gain this one, or 1 to gain this trick. You can have as many trick cards as you like. However, you can only use 1 trick card each time you take cards from the grid. After buying a trick card, you slide all cards downwards and fill the top space with a new card from the stack. Likewise, adoption cards are kept in the player's hand and can be used to gain a new rescued dog from the market. Here we have a fixed cost of 2 cards, so you discard the cards and rescue one of the dogs. Rescued dogs also offer objectives for more victory points at the end of the game. Again, you need to slide all cards downwards and refill the empty spot with a new card from the stack. Last but not least, we have trait cards. These get attached to dogs like that to grant players these victory points here. Each dog can have only 1 attached trait. When you take a trait, you need to attach it on the same turn to a specific dog type Otherwise, there are consequences. For example, this one says that on this turn you have to attach it to a medium dog, which is this one, otherwise discard this and 2 training cards. If you cannot attach the trait on the same turn, you have to fulfill the consequence as much as possible. After a trait is attached to a dog, it grants rule-breaking effects. For example, this one here, it says that while attached to a dog, the dog can attack unlimited training cards instead of just 1, and they will score 2 victory points at the end of the game instead of the normal 1. The game's end is triggered as soon as the game is ending card is placed on the grid. When this happens, you exchange this card with a new one from the stack, and game continues until all players have had equal number of turns. This means when the player who sits to the right of the player with a scoring pad takes their turn. If that was that player's turn, then the game ends immediately. Let us now see how scoring works with an example. In scoring, players first feed as many of their dogs using food cubes accumulated so far. The type and amount of food required by each dog is depicted in the bottom of the card. So I need to spend this cube to feed this dog, and I will also spend these 2 cubes to feed my third dog. You cannot partially feed dogs, so this one requires 3, I have only 2, this dog will remain unfed. Unfed dogs grant player -2 victory points, regardless the attachments and the cards that are tacked. The first dog scores 2 victory points plus another 2 for the trait, plus another 2 for the walk card, and also 2 victory points per training card tacked instead of the normal 1 because of the power of the attached trait card. So in total, this dog has scored me 10 victory points. The third dog scores 2 plus another 2 for the walk card, 4 victory points, and it's a rescued dog which allows me to tack a ball card under it for a bonus 4 victory points, which I did, so this dog scores 8 victory points. Then in my hand I have 2 bone cards which grant me 1 victory point per each dog. Only fed dogs count, so I gain 2 victory points. And I also have 3 different favorite things that grant me 6 victory points. After you tally up the score, the player with the most victory points is declared the winner. If there is a tie, the winner is the player with the most fed dogs. If again there is a tie, then the winner is the player with the most fed rescued dogs. After that, you may play a second match, and the winner of that one will be declared the winner of both matches. And that is how you can play the game Dog Lover. If except than dogs you also love our videos, please subscribe to my channel, and until next time, have fun and play more board games.